Afternoon. So, I would like to continue where I left off last week. I was answering some questions that a student had sent in about an earlier talk that I gave about things being like illusions. It's a common theme in Buddhist teachings about how the way we see things isn't the way they really are, but they're like illusions. So it's an illustration of emptiness. The true nature of things being empty of our usual way of seeing things. So anyway, I don't want to go through the whole thing again, but there were a number of questions, and the first one I took care of last week. The student asked, how does an enlightened being see things? So I don't know. I'm not an enlightened being, but it said in the teachings that an enlightened being sees things as they are. An enlightened being would see a person or a tree or a mountain or whatever, just as it is, without this false overlay of inherent existence or true existence. So just things as they are, both conventional truths and ultimate truths. But it's really hard for us to really understand that. We have to become a Buddha to really understand that. And in the analogy of the magic show, this would be like the person who comes late and wasn't there when the magician was performing his magic, abracadabra, and ding, causing the stick to appear as an elephant. So the magician sees the elephant, the audience sees the elephant, but a person who comes along later doesn't see an elephant because they weren't affected by the magic. So they just see a bunch of people there with a stick. They just see things as they are. Okay, so the second question this person asked is, can an enlightened being see what other beings see? In other words, true existence, inherent existence. So again, I'm not speaking from experience, but it is said in the teachings that, yeah, a Buddha, even though a Buddha doesn't see things as inherently existing or truly existing, Buddha can see what we see. Buddha is able to see that that's how things appear to us. We see things in a false way, in a mistaken way, and that we get all emotional about the way we see things. So Buddha does see things the way we do. And going back to the magic show, the third person who comes late and doesn't see the elephant, let's say this person has clairvoyance, the ability to see the minds of others. So this person can look into the minds of the magician and the audience and recognize that they are seeing an elephant. But this person knows there's no elephant there. It's totally false, totally imaginary. And if this person also has empathy, kindness, compassion, then they would feel concern for all these people who are getting all upset, especially the ones who are frightened, who are scared of the elephant or angry about the elephant or whatever. Their minds are kind of disturbed emotionally by this elephant which isn't even there. And so this person would want to help them and say to them, now calm down, don't be so upset. There's really nothing there. You don't have to be frightened about this because it's not really there. So this is what the Buddha does. The Buddha is able to see that we see things as real, inherently existing, independently existing, and because we totally believe in that appearance of things, and then we get all emotional. If there's a person or an object that appears very attractive, then we get all attached and clinging, want that person or object to be there forever and never disappear, and then feel very sad when they do disappear. Or those people and beings that appear unpleasant to us that we don't like, then we get caught up in aversion, dislike, even anger, hatred, even want to do something harmful to them. So the Buddha is able to see how we react emotionally to things that aren't even there. And the Buddha has, of course, infinite compassion and love and wants us to free us from this situation. And so the Buddha will do everything possible to help us to calm down, to look at things, see things in a more realistic way, and become free of this mistaken way of seeing things that we are caught up in. Okay, a third question. Do enlightened beings have emotions? What do they see and feel when someone is dying? So this word emotion is a little tricky because my understanding, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but apparently there is no word in Sanskrit and also in Tibetan that's the equivalent of what we call emotions. Instead, the Buddhist scriptures speak about mental factors, different kinds of mental factors, some of which are negative or non-virtuous. They would be things like anger, greed, jealousy, arrogance, and of course ignorance. And then there are other mental factors that are more on the positive side, the constructive side, such as compassion and love and joy and equanimity and faith and so on. So in the case of a Buddha, the mind of a Buddha is totally free of all the negative, disturbing mental factors. There's no more anger, no more attachment, no more greed, no more jealousy, no more ignorance. All of those have been totally cleared away so that they will never arise again. But a Buddha does have all the positive, if you want to call them emotions, those positive mental factors such as love and compassion. And of course, totally dedicated to helping others. So in the case of somebody dying, I can only imagine Buddha would observe this person and just know without any doubt that there's no inherently existing person there who is dying. And also dying, death is also not inherently existing. There's just a flow of different factors, physical factors, mental factors arising and passing and so on and so forth. And so there's nothing to be upset about, nothing to be sad about. And the Buddha would most probably feel just total compassion for this person and want to help them to have a peaceful state of mind as they're dying and a positive rebirth, a good rebirth where they're going next. So that's just my guess, what a Buddha would feel. But also, I heard a story that when the Buddha himself was passing away, we call it parinirvana. So he was lying on the floor of the forest, and many of his disciples were there with him. And some of them were very upset, crying and wailing and, carrying on. Their wonderful teacher was leaving them. But other disciples were calm. They didn't get all emotional, all upset. And it said those are the ones who are arhats, whose minds had reached such a level of understanding of emptiness that they had cleared away all the afflictive emotions, such as attachment and anger and fear and so on and so forth. So all of those were totally gone from their mind because of their understanding of the true nature of things. So they were able to remain calm at the time that the Buddha was passing away. And the other disciples who were getting all upset, it's because whether they had a realization of emptiness or not, they might have, but it wasn't to the extent that all their disturbing emotions were cleared away. So they were still under the effect of seeing things in a mistaken way as inherently existing and reacting emotionally to that. So there's one last question. I'll try to finish. If we react to a situation the commonly accepted way, does that indicate that we are under the power of illusions? So I think what she means by commonly accepted way would be like if someone is passing away and we get all upset and sad, or we get angry if somebody insults us. Okay, does that reaction show that we are still under the power of illusions? Well, it's quite possible. But that's something you have to check for yourself, okay? You have to look into your own mind and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Why am I getting all upset? How am I seeing this person? How am I seeing this situation? Am I seeing them correctly in a realistic way, or am I exaggerating, seeing things as much more real than they really are? So this is something we need to check for ourselves. And then a continuation of that is if someone reacts in the not common way, for example, being compassionate when someone insults us, does that indicate that the person is more trained in not believing the illusion anymore? So, quite possible, as the story of the disciples when the Buddha was passing away shows. Okay, so the arhats, those who had a strong realization of emptiness and their minds were totally free of disturbing emotions, they didn't show sadness, which is what people normally show when somebody's passing away. So they were very calm and peaceful. So yeah, definitely, the more we understand emptiness, the less we are caught up in the illusion of things being more real than they really are, then it probably would help us to react in a different way than normal. But just be careful about this, because I was thinking there's talk about people who don't have empathy, who are lacking in empathy. And I was just reading an article earlier about this, and it even had the term empathy deficit disorder. So, and apparently there's quite a bit of this going around. So there are people who don't show the normal reactions. For example, showing concern and kindness and care when somebody's suffering. Okay, so if you see somebody behaving that way, it wouldn't perhaps be wise to think, oh, that person must be enlightened. They must have a really strong realization of emptiness. They're so calm and cool when this person is suffering. Yeah, does that make sense? I was thinking in particular of this man in Norway. I don't know how to say his name properly. Anders Breivik, I think, the one who killed 77 people. He just went on a shooting spree and killed all these people. And they say he showed no concern at all for the suffering that he caused. And he said his only regret was that he hadn't killed more people. Yeah, so the psychiatrist said he had a personality disorder. So this article said, yeah, people who lack empathy were probably raised in families who avoided getting in touch with their feelings and even condemned others for feeling their emotions. Some people have learned to shut down their feelings early in their lives to such a degree that they closed off their hearts and can't even feel their own feelings. They certainly can't relate to or feel other people's feelings. Okay, so just because a person doesn't show the normal kind of emotions isn't a sign that they're enlightened or they have a realization of emptiness. And it mentions also lack of empathy can also be associated with severe disorders such as narcissism, antisocial personality disorders, and psychopathy. Okay, so a Buddha, if a Buddha remains calm, or a highly developed person remains calm, it's not because of these causes, it's because of an understanding of emptiness. But they would show other factors. They would show kindness and compassion and sympathy and reach out and help anybody who's going through difficulties. So I hope that's clear. I hope I've answered these questions in a clear way. And yeah. Thank you.